Now, Egypt has discovered, well, I think it was a British and Egyptian team, actually, finding the historic discovery, the long-lost tomb of King Thutmose II, the last of the lost tombs of the kings of ancient Egypt's 18th dynasty.
Yes, and it's the first royal Egyptian tomb to be discovered since King Tutankhamun's final resting place was found in 1922.
A very exciting discovery, and here to tell us all about it is the historian and author Martin Whittock. Martin, the first royal tomb since Tutankhamun.
Indeed, and identified as King Thutmose II. Other pronunciations are also available. And as you say, it's the last of the lost tombs of Egypt's 18th dynasty. They ruled between about 1550 BC and 1292 BC. It had been known before this tomb since 2022 as Tomb C4, as its occupant was then unknown. But what's happened now is parts of alabaster vessels have been found which have inscriptions bearing the name of Pharaoh Thutmose II and identifying him as the deceased king, along, interestingly, with the name of his wife, Hatshepsut. Now, she's an interesting woman because after he died, she ruled as pharaoh in her own right, one of only 2 women to do so in ancient Egyptian history. Now, the mummy of King Thutmose II was actually discovered during the 19th century at a nearby archaeological site known as Deir el-Bahari Kashet, and it's thought it was moved there after it had been looted by tomb raiders centuries ago. So the tomb is not going to give us the kind of treasures that we associate with Tutankhamun, I'm afraid, but it shows us the architecture of these royal tombs.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, it's 11 o'clock, which means it's time for tomorrow's newspapers tonight. Join us over the next hour to find out who is Trump happy with. Is Nigel Farage the Messiah, or is he just a very naughty boy? And is the new $270 million Snow White film going to be a disaster? I'm Josh Howie. Tonight, I'm joined by Cresta Wetton and Simon Evans to take you through Friday's top stories. This is Headliners. Straight to business tonight. We're going to give you the best of tomorrow's newspapers today with the best comedians. First things first, we're going to have a look at the front pages. The Times, Trump is encouraged by Zelensky peace. The Guardian, a watershed moment. EU leaders agree to huge defence spending rise. And The Telegraph, pension fund giants boycott UK arms firms. So more front pages in a few minutes. But Cresta, what do you make of the Times?
Well, I haven't had my usual 3 minutes of news to read this morning.
I know.
But the headline says Trump is encouraged by Zelensky peace talk. Well, so am I.
Yeah.
It's all looking a lot better than it was, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Trump... Yeah. Trump is encouraged by Zelensky now kind of kowtowing after they basically pulled the intelligence, pulled any weapons.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And now he's coming back and saying, go on then, have you got any ideas?
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, Zelensky hasn't had an option, Simon, right?
Yeah, well, not many options. As people said, he spent 24, maybe 48 hours meeting various European leaders and swiftly came to the conclusion that there was only one game in town after all.
Yeah.
I mean, things move very, very quickly at the moment, and it does seem that this has created a permanent sense in Europe that they have to protect themselves in future. They have to ramp up their defence spending, they have to create their own deterrence and so on. But in the meantime, yes, I think he's going to be brought to the table. But even that's interesting. I mean, I remember, God, it must have been just over a week ago now, that there was an initial shock announcement from Trump that he would be speaking directly to Vladimir Putin, and Zelensky wasn't invited to the negotiations. Well, that's changed as well. So Trump and Zelensky are now going to map out a framework which they're then going to take to Putin, as far as I can understand.
Trump's going to map out a framework and Zelensky's going to nod along.
For a moment, I thought you meant all three of them
was there as well,
No.
the UK Defence Secretary, meeting with Pete Hegseth. I'm comparing tattoos.
Yeah.
So that would have been an meeting of minds and inks.
There was an interesting Douglas Murray piece there, I don't know if you read it, about how some of the right are just totally captured by this anti-Zelensky rhetoric, propaganda.
Yes, possibly.
So was you one of the people he was talking about?
Well, possibly. I don't know. I think it's very difficult at the moment. There's an awful lot of mind reading going on. People who think that 3 years of stalemate is enough and they would like to see the meat grinder slow down now are accused of appeasement. There are several problems with that. One is, I think, that the relentless go-to example of Hitler and the late 30s as the only analogy through which to understand the lens of modern current affairs, foreign affairs, is tiresome. But also, that wasn't appeasement. Hitler went into Sudetenland, went into Austria, without a single shot being fired. Those were reunited. They were taken back under German control because they were majority German ethnic territories.
As Ukraine has fought back.
I think a fair amount of shots have been fired, and indeed a good deal of war atrocities have been committed as well. And so to compare that to appeasement is absolutely absurd. Just demonstrates the people reaching the first word they remember from GCSE.
They're talking about appeasement now, I think, as opposed to appeasement 3 years ago.
Yeah.
But, Cresta...
No, but it's not appeasement. If you've had a war for 3 years and then you go, right, let's come to some sort of peaceful settlement...
You mean they've already had a crack at it?
It's not an appeasement. That is how wars end. And they usually begin with some sort of unwarranted action.
But they usually end with a victory, usually.
No,
or someone, Afghanistan... I mean, let's do another analogy would be Afghanistan, where Russia did withdraw.
Yeah. That was one example, absolutely, after 10 years of stalemate and going nowhere. The First World War ended with a negotiated settlement after Germany had not withdrawn beyond their own borders and were forced into, an unequal peace that prepared the ground for the Second World War.
Well,
there are all kinds of different examples, is my point.
Well, that's a good analogy.
Endlessly go to the only one that anyone seems to know anything about.
I guess that, I agree with you that is just the default point, but at the same time, the First World War might be a good example in terms of it laid the war for another war. This is not... That's what Zelensky wants, is a real peace. And, of course, he argues without America, without any security guarantees, they're not going to get it, Cresta, right?
Yeah, well, that sounds... Yeah, they're the ones with the money.
Yeah, well, anyway, before we move on from time, just want to say there's a picture of a little boy and his dog. This is from Crufts, and they're talking about a record number of foreign entrants are among the 18,000 dogs in competition. I mean, Telegraph, Times, give it a rest for 1 second for it. Let's go on to The Guardian, then. Simon, you got that?
Yes, The Guardian will stay with war, defence, the EU waking up from their 80-year slumber to realise they have responsibility for the security of their nations. Unanimity marred, apparently, by Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orban, who failed to endorse an EU statement on Ukraine. But other than that, there seems to be a good deal of unanimity, generally speaking. Quite how much it's going to be racked up to as a percentage of the overall budget that the EU... various countries have. There was a campaign a few years ago that 6% should be spent on defence. I don't know that many of them are going to go that high. But they're talking about 800 billion euros or 670 billion pounds. That is not given in dollars, pointedly. But that's the total they're looking for, which I think would amount to roughly €1,000 per citizen of the EU. So that would be quite a substantial.
Well, if they spend it in the EU, and actually then it could be good. Cresta, there's another story here. ULEZ has improved London air rapidly. That's a good story.
Oh, yes, I certainly noticed the difference in the
Can you
time.
breathe?
No, and that's not just because I live in a basement. People in London are breathing significantly cleaner air since the expansion of the city's ultra-low emission zone. Well, that's good, isn't it? It says a study has found levels of pollutants that are linked to a wide range of... We hear this a lot, don't we? There's pollutants everywhere and they're going to give you terrible diseases. I don't know who did the survey, though, or the study, I should say.
I will just note, I mean, there isn't a single number on the front page other than the date of the year in which they were introduced. That makes me suspicious. Significantly reducing is like, you can throw these words around. You need... to be honest, the level of stress that they create among the driving community, trying to keep down to 20 miles per hour, watching pedestrians overtake you, is especially when the roads are otherwise absolutely clear after midnight, driving home from headliners, I suspect is going to lead to more premature deaths than any amount of airborne...
So you're going to get even more angry after the show, then?
Absolutely, yes.
Let's move on to the Daily Telegraph, then. Pension fund giants boycotting UK arms firms. Cressida, surely now we're going to be spending billions of pounds on arms. This is a good time to invest in.
Well, you would think, wouldn't you? So some pension funds are boycotting it because it affects their ESG currently.
We still have those, do we?
What is it?
Did you put it in Chinese food?
Ethical...
Social governance. That's what I'm saying, and I'm sticking to it. So for a long time it's been fashionable, hasn't it, to not have any naughty money flying. Everything you invest in's got to be lovely and green and keep Greta happy. And now...
That's what the G stands for. Ethical, sexy Greta.
Oh, not sure about that. So anyway, this is being challenged. Of course, Reeves is saying, no, it's fine. And I would agree. I think investing in defence, I'm up for that. I don't think you should treat that as an immoral thing to invest in.
Yeah, and also makes some money, Simon.
Well, of course, it's the usual hypocrisy, as I've been referencing on with each new page that comes along, whereby we think it's OK to, lean on others to provide our security guarantees, and we can mince around pretending that we can't possibly taint our pension funds with these filthy arms manufacturers. And they're now waking up the very same people who think that it is an absolute ethical imperative to stand up to Putin are the same people, I suspect, who for the last however many decades have regarded arms manufacturers as work of the devil.
Yeah, also there's a little story at the bottom. £1 in every £4 of tax will go on benefits by the end of the decade. That's an incredible sum. I mean, already it's huge, but to think that that's a quarter of all tax money is going to go on it. And there's also Telegraph cleared over transgender term. The use of term biological male when describing a trans athlete has been vindicated. So basically, we're allowed to tell the truth. Hopefully. That's what it looks like. Oh, happy days.
They called it a dog whistle. It's not a very good dog whistle, is it? I might start using that when I take Bucky for a walk in Hove Park.
Yeah, just a dog fact.
Biological male!
Good luck with that. if you hear an angry man in the corner screaming...
Combine that with a few cheesy snacks, and you get a response.
Come over here, biological male. Right, let's have a look at some more front pages. We have the Mirror, betrayed again. The Metro, 1 in 4 knows a female victim of violence, and the Star, footy crisis of 5-a-side pitches ripped up for la-di-da paddle courts. So, Simon, the Mirror here, this is the sort of ongoing saga of this terrible crime. The Nottingham killer.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to see inside the story, so I'm only going from the headline. It's obviously something the Mirror are pursuing alone and have left Ukraine and so on off their front page. The point is that as well as being let down, as they say, before they died, hospital bosses fear staff illegally access the A&E records of the victims. But to quite what ends and to what extent it might have been, a cause of any distress to their families is not entirely clear from what I can see. Obviously, it didn't save them. This is after the point at which they'd already been murdered. The schizophrenic Valdo Calocane, who 33, who stabbed the trio, his records, of course, might have been studied more profitably beforehand, and measures taken to prevent him from performing that horrific murder. But as I say, unable, frankly, to be able to pass the story more adequately than that, I'm afraid. Sorry.
Fair enough. Well, Cressida, let's look at this. 1 in 4 knows a female victim of violence. Yeah,
this is the Metro shock findings of Metro campaign survey. So, again, I don't know exactly who they've asked. Nationwide emergency now revealed, says Women's Charity Chief. So it says that a quarter of us know a woman or girl who's been a victim of domestic abuse over the past year.
Yeah.
That's not very long, is it? I don't know, in this case, what counts as domestic abuse. I don't know if they're talking about physical abuse, verbal, all of it. I don't know. And it also says that 20% confirm they've seen or heard it in the same period, and 39% confirm that they know a woman or girl who's a victim of sexual harassment. And that's another one of those terms where I always think, well, what exactly do we mean? I don't know.
I mean, it's a story that's just full of vague sort of gestures that are intended to shock and appall you. And, of course, any female victim of violence is too many, but without adequately explaining the number, which there is, again, not a single number demonstrating how many people have been either a victim or committed these offences. But they're using a statistical trick to basically make your blood run cold. It could easily be, for instance, an artefact of an expanded social networking, that exists in society now. If you knew 500 people now, how many contact names do you have on your phone compared to 50 years ago? Yeah. That could explain it. Just for some sort of comparison, I did actually look it up. There are 156 women murdered in the last full year on record, 23-24, and 414 men. Nearly 3 times as many men are murder victims. I'm not saying that, women shouldn't be protected, but it's a ridiculous...
You want parity?
I'm just saying it's a ridiculous story intended to create alarm and support Jess Phillips and her monotonous monologues in the House of Commons on an annual basis. You need actual numbers rather than how many people know somebody or has heard of somebody or feels vaguely as if they remember reading about something in the local paper. Incidentally, in that same year, 23-24, female victims were down 10%. Okay. Down. It's a decrease of 10% on the previous year.
And that's victims of?
Of murder.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not saying that there aren't lots of things to be concerned about, but these kind of stories are just intended to...
I guess also, but in terms of rape, I believe that's gone up, and also the inability for our police to seem to do anything in our justice system to hold people to account for it is obviously a problem. But I don't know, it's anecdotally for me, and maybe you're right, Sam, maybe you're being manipulated by the media, but it feels like it's more dangerous to be a woman. And that's from speaking to friends and seeing things online.
Than it was 5 years ago? Or...
Yeah.
Yeah, OK.
That's anecdotal.
Well, you see, that your feeling is... I'm not by any means disputing your lived experience, but it would be useful to get numbers rather than...
No, of course, always about dates. I mean, if only we had a woman here who would talk to us about...
Well, this is a big thing, isn't it? As you said, Jess Phillips is talking about this a lot, and they've put it next to the story of the ex-soldier who has now been found guilty of rape as well as murder. And the story that's sort of doing the rounds on the papers today about this guy is that he was watching Andrew Tate videos before he committed the murder. So that story is sort of raising its head again. I suppose the implication is that had he not watched Andrew Tate, this might not have happened, which I don't necessarily find very convincing.
No, exactly. It seems to be that the cause was this was an ex-girlfriend and he was angry that the family had sort of seemingly helped...
Split up within 13 days.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think Andrew Tate is going to have an impact on that, really. But yes, but of course they want to get their narrative. Fair enough, not that I'm a fan of Andrew Tate, but still. Daily Star, finally, let's finish on that. And this is actually about paddle boarding? Paddle something, Simon?
Paddle courts, yes, which is a sort of small-scale tennis, isn't it, with a sort of rigid plastic back.
It's very trendy, isn't it, now?
Alfred Ian Stone, I think his son has made a lot of money setting up these courts or leasing them out as well,
so
yes.
This is what they're talking about, getting rid of it, which is ironic, because obviously Ian is a massive football fan.
Yes,
so if his son is getting rid of football...
He's created his own demise. Arsenal, in a few years' time, will be short of up-and-coming talent as a result. Yeah, I mean, games do come and go a little bit. Again, only from personal experience, living in Hove, the bowling greens have been dug up recently to make way for new recreational developments, which are considered to be more, suitable to the current Hove.
What is it?
They put in like a half pipe and some graffiti.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, there's going to be a skate
park. The shooting gallery.
We have some half-decent tennis courts, but I mean. Honestly, I think it's probably quite good that anyone is playing anything outdoors at all at the moment, isn't it? Really, that's the good thing.
It's going to encourage people. And Cresta, a little story here about I guess that pub has finally changed the pub sign. Remember that story that kept on coming back, named after Prince Andrew, and I think they've axed it. He's gone.
They've got rid of him off the sign.
They've got rid of him off the sign. Yeah.
Wow. Well,
it's over 18s only and the boozer.
Surely it would be the other way around. Surely it should be younger people. We can go there. No. Anybody under 16 can get in. All right, that's your front page is done. But, oh, boy, we've got some great stuff coming up with the latest developments from the two-tier justice saga. And is Nigel Farage the Messiah? You don't want to go anywhere. This is Headliners, only on GB News.
the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and this is GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Patrick Christie's Tonight. Weekdays from 9 p.m.
Well, let's talk about something that has really divided opinion now. So this is King Charles gearing up for a religious festival, not Easter, Ramadan. Packing dates for Muslims, observing a month of fasting. Here's the clip.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't realize the king would be so fast. You are packing days faster than I can see them.
What do you make of that, Charlie?
Well, I don't see any problems with it. I mean, let's not forget that the royals, particularly the king, does an awful lot of work with a variety of charities, especially those charities that help people who are, down on their luck or need a bit of extra boost. This one is a doorstep charity which provides help to people waiting for new homes. Now, you mentioned this one. This is for Ramadan. Now, in a month's time, Patrick, he'll be doing the Easter service. A Christian festival, and he'll on the day before Good Friday he'll be donating the Maundy money that comes out every year to 30-odd pensioners. It's not a princely sum. They're not going to be able to pay the winter fuel allowance, or it's not going to cover anything like that. But it is symbolic. Now, he does an awful lot of things. And remember, years and years ago, Charles has always said he didn't want to be defender of the faith. He wanted to be defender of all faith. So it's only right that the king fosters good relationships with a variety of religions.
As well, Charles, thank you very much. Always a pleasure to have you on. Good to see you again, mate. It's been a little while. It's Charlie Ray there.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners. Let's get going with Friday's Telegraph, Cressida, where the state is fighting back against racism. Racism that comes from the state.
That's right. Justice Secretary threatens to strip powers of Quango behind two-tier justice rules. So I think we covered this yesterday on Headliners. The Sentencing Council has had this... Well, it's not a new idea, but they're going to have this idea that the sentence should take into account a person's, whether or not they're part of an ethnic minority or if they're a woman or whatever, which is obviously not what we're all expecting. We expect to be equal in the eyes of the law.
Hollow laugh.
Well, there you go.
Someone's not been paying attention.
So Shabina Mahmood has come out and she said, well, I'm not having it. She's done a sort of Harold Bishop chin wobble and said, I'm disgusted, I'm horrified. And she's saying that she won't stand for it and that she thinks possibly that this Quango's got too much power and she might take it away from them. And now there's a bit of sort of... she's looking shocked, but also Robert Jenrick is looking shocked and saying, not on my watch. But, of course, this actually was introduced... I read today in the Times, actually, that David Lammy's recommendations are what led to this. But it was still the case that when he suggested this, the Tories kind of waved it through at the time.
Yeah.
And now that it's sort of upon us, everyone's saying, oh, no, this can't be right.
Well, this is it. It's almost like any legislation or anything that was like happening in 2022, 23 needs to be scrapped or at least gone through with a fine toothpick, because that sort of peak woke progressive ideology that contained this stuff, where in its desire for anti-racism actually turns out to, of course, be racist.
Yes, and there is some truth to that, and it's a disgrace, of course, that happened on the Tories' watch, and it is probably an argument for those who think that Jenrick would be a more plausible leader at the moment than Badenoch, because he has at least he did step away from a lot of the cabinet activity at that time. And I think he's in a reasonably good position to critique it, and he made a good speech about it. But, yeah, it's ridiculous. I think we're all slightly in the dark as to exactly who does make these decisions, and that is part of the genius of the Quango, of course, largely Tony Blair's invention, that it just muddies the waters and creates a sort of artificial feedback loop, or a sort of an external bounce off which you can sort of pitch a certain kind of legislative notion that you have, and it just comes back in as if it's from an independent inquiry or whatever. But as others have said, you know, this is not an isolated example of wokery. This is a response to the fact that there do seem to be asymmetrical prevalences of certain ethnicities, cultures, whatever, within jail, and that are over-sentenced. And in order to try and rebalance them and make a success of multicultural Britain, measures have to be taken to make sure that there are the right number of people of every ethnicity proportionally represented.
No. Well, when you say over-sentenced, do you mean committing more crimes, or are they being sentenced more for the same crime than someone who isn't part of the
accusation.
Well, yeah, lack of.
That is exactly the question, which is either being begged or skirted around.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing is that actually I don't think that they should pull this. And hear me out, right? Islam is going to soon be the actual dominant religion.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a huge benefit to a Christian minority of criminals.
Well, if it says minority rather than Islam, yes.
Well, technically, I think, but, you know, this could work out very well. If you're a Jesus person and you want to commit crimes, wait a couple of years and, yeah.
And you think this will be applied sensibly?
Oh, yeah, this is going to get loads of Christians off the hook.
Excellent. Well, that's fascinating.
We'll see. Simon, on to the Mail. And where does contempt of court and contempt of the public meet?
Yes, this is quite interesting because it goes against the general drift of the complaints that Starmer and others were mouthing not long ago, that the reason that this is to do with the Southport killings, Sir Keir Starmer's secrecy, according to the Daily Mail, over the Southport killings could have put the entire murder trial at risk. A terror watchdog warns. Terror watchdog, it should be emphasised, is Jonathan Hall, Casey, not some sort of hideous,
a singular dog, singular person.
Multi-headed sort of guardian of hell. But the point is, he says, that the vacuum, essentially, which I think most of us on this programme agreed during the time, the vacuum of information concerning who the suspect was and whether or not he was Muslim, whether or not he was on any kind of watch list, whether or not he was a recent arrival on a boat, or whether he was born here and so on. That vacuum created the opportunity, according to Jonathan Hall, for far more contagious disinformation and dangerous fictions to be spread online, and indeed, if we weren't very careful, through the TV. And that could have been far more prejudicial to the prosecution of Ruda Kubana than some of the true facts which were suppressed in the name of contempt of court.
Yeah.
So, worth considering in the future.
Well, this is it, Cresta. What do you think about this? Do you think that they're going to implement any sort of changes? Do you think that Starmer seems to have... Do you think he was just trying to quell dissent, or but actually it created more?
No, I mean, I think definitely created more, because it's part of a wider issue, isn't it? That the public don't feel like they're being told the truth about all sorts of things. Yeah. Having said that, will it make any difference? I think what might change is that it's not really exactly the same thing, but they're looking at redefining terrorism, aren't they? Because Ruda Kubana wasn't a terrorist. He wasn't, by the current rules, he wasn't allied to any specific ideology. He was just sort of... he was a very bad egg, and you couldn't put it down to saying, well, he was part of that particular movement. And I've got some sympathy with the authorities on it, because obviously we hear all the time, oh, he was referred to prevent so many times, how did nobody do anything? And you can see how nobody did anything, because he wasn't their problem. He didn't fit their criteria.
You mean prevent?
He didn't fit their criteria, so we might have to widen the definition. I don't know how wide we go, because it's very difficult, isn't it?
Yes. I mean, you might think when you see a horrific murder like that there's no particular need for it to be defined as terrorism or otherwise. But as you say, obviously the point is, are they on the watch list? Are they being surveilled?
Guardian next, Cressida. The police will be relieved that they've given themselves a clean bill of health.
Oh, police correctly investigated Alison Pearson's alleged racism review finds. Oh, does it? I tend not to agree. Telegraph columnist was visited by by exemplary officer after complaint about inaccurate tweet she later deleted. This feels like you're saying, oh, well, my smear test was carried out by a commendable nurse. It's like as if it's about the way... I don't think Alison Pearson's that worried about exactly the way the police person spoke to her.
No, I don't remember her saying he was rude. It was the point was that he should not have been investigated in the first place.
Absolutely, and it was a non-crime hate incident in the end, which I don't believe in. I don't think there should be such a thing. If it's a crime, get the police involved. If it isn't, don't.
The implication is that they have no alternative once some sort of vexatious nonsense like this has been raised, but to go round to somebody's house. And this one leapt out at me. They said she had complained that it was intrusive to arrive, you know, on Sunday, like about 11 o'clock in the morning, I think, on Sunday. I seem to remember it was Remembrance Sunday as well, wasn't it? Yeah, Remembrance Sunday, saying it was a waste of time. But while the timing could be seen as inconsiderate, according to the report notes the officers happened to be in the area. No, I'm sorry, that's like, we might as well drop in.
Let's go see Alison.
Yeah.
Let's go see Alison.
Not good enough.
I like the bit that me is the report concludes our view of the officer's behaviour during the interaction was exemplary. It noted that he remained calm and polite throughout. There was never an issue with their politeness on it. It was all about why were they there. The fact that they've sort of come up with this as their conclusion is absolutely ridiculous. Cressida, The Guardian, now has Nigel Farage suffering for all of our sins.
Reform MP says Nigel Farage must change messianic leadership style. So this is Rupert Lowe. This is in The Guardian as well. It's sort of, they're trying to tell us that reform's falling apart, everyone's squabbling, which normally I would just reject that and say, oh, it's The Guardian. But then it goes through all these things that Rupert Lowe said, and he's not fully endorsing Farage at this point, is he?
Sure isn't.
He's saying things like, well, it's too early to know whether Nigel will deliver the goods. And then he goes on to talk about himself and his own business experience. And, of course, he says that when he's sitting in Parliament, because he's been involved in farming, various risk-taking businesses, he's like the one-eyed man in the kingdom of the blind. And so it's looking like he's got a pretty good chance of being the next leader.
What do you think about this, Simon? He might have some points in terms of the way that reform is run, but also they whatever the party is, whether you agree with them or not, they're just a very new party, and it takes a long time to build up the necessary structures.
I think that's absolutely right. I think Rupert Lowe's estimation of himself, obviously you allow for a little bit of self-congratulation, but I don't think he's far off the mark. A lot of people would agree that he's the most plain-spoken man, both in the House of Commons and on social media, funnily enough, of the entire crop of current MPs. And Farage, of course, made his name on exactly the same footing. I don't think he is a leader in waiting. I think he's older than Farage for a start, which would be an unusual, not totally unheard of, but Roger Moore was older than Sean Connery, I believe, so it can happen. But I think, generally speaking, as you say, he has identified the issue that reform will have to confront at some point, which is how do they move from being essentially a single-issue stroke activist protest organisation into leaders in waiting. And if they were able to do that in a single a single parliament, that would be amazing.
We'll see. On a side note as to whether Nigel Farage is the Messiah, I will say that in the kitchen he did change my cup of tea to wine. So that's all I'm saying. Right, we're at the halfway point, and my favourite section is coming up. Who is Trump banning from from America, and plenty more? I don't know what I've written here, but what happened to the teacher that refused to call an 8-year-old boy? We'll see you guys in a couple of minutes while I sort out what happened with your interview.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation.
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners, where Simon will get the ball rolling with Friday's Mail. And it's like it's 2017 all over again, Simon.
Yes, Trump's very first inaugural outrage is being revisited, it seems. Trump sends shockwaves with plans to implement new travel ban on Muslim nations. I don't know whether that does include the UK and France at this stage. No, more seriously, I think it's literally just Afghanistan and Pakistan at the moment in the crosshairs. But it is obviously calling back to that time when he kept travellers from a total of 7 Muslim nations from entering the United States and first revealed his dark side. That was amongst his very first executive orders. It seems that he could be doing this, but at the moment, I think it's fairly unformed.
It's all in the air.
Yeah, saying it'll only take a week.
There's an awful lot. We were looking at the Daily Mail on their website. There's an awful lot of sort of potential Trump stories almost jostling to be lined up to see which, obviously most
Sure,
of
he's providing the news, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely.
We've got a very busy 4 or 5 years.
His changing tack on the Mexico tariffs is that's changing almost by the hour as well. I have some Canadian relatives who I've never seen anyone, to be honest, as exercised as they are at the moment on the outrage that they feel about the way they're being treated.
It's almost like they're proud to be Canadians. It's weird to see.
Yeah, he is awakening all kinds of nationalistic fervour in countries that had long since thought they'd outgrown that.
What do you think about this, Cressida?
I think it's like, we've got this endless stream of Telegraph stories saying we can't deport anybody. He's kind of got the reverse of that, hasn't he? Like, if you want to come in, you're going to have to prove that you're absolutely squeaky clean.
You have to not like chicken nuggets to come to this country. Fine, fair enough. More Mail now. And Cressida, an ex-Tory MP says it's time to teach young men to fight with honour and baby oil, if possible.
She did not say that.
Oh, is it she? I thought it was a he.
Boys to wrestle can reduce knife crime and other serious violence, claims ex-Tory MP. So this is Miriam Cates,
who was just here,
friend of the show.
Yeah, absolutely,
and she has she's been speaking at the launch of a report, Lost Boys, by the Centre for Social Justice think tank.
Great film.
And she's saying lots of really sensible things. She's talking about roughhousing young boys and girls, but particularly boys. Boys cause more trouble later on, so it's more important that we get it right. They need to do wrestling and learn the power of their own strength. And I mean, this isn't a new idea. Warren Farrell's written about this loads, and other sort of men's interest, and I would argue human interest, because we don't want violent men. So this is, great, good for her. She's exactly right.
Makes a lot of sense. Did you wrestle your son, Simon?
Funnily enough, we used to do a thing called the opposites, which was sort of like Central European tumbling, like father and son acrobatics. We saw it once in a square somewhere, where I would hold his hands and he would sort of walk up my body and then turn a somersault or stand on my... But, no, I used to encourage him to, try and be physical. I think there is a lot of strength, a lot of truth in the idea, both that if you learn to have a healthy relationship with your own violent inclinations, but also your physical, muscular, abilities and so on, you're much less likely to use them randomly and not understand your strength. And also, of course, you'll be able to step up on occasions when somebody else is throwing their weight around on a late-night tube or whatever. You might feel that you have at least be able to assess whether or not you can intervene safely.
I mean, I've got 4 boys and a girl, and my house is just...
rubble.
Just bedlam. It's just and as I sit there, my wife's like, maybe you should split them up, Josh. No, I'm trying to help them
there's no stabbing happening.
Let me just watch my TV show.
And it's good, of course. Yes, it is good for girls to also wrestle and to be thrown into it.
My daughter's tough.
But it is also important for them to understand, for boys and girls to understand from a fairly early age, that statistically, on average, men's upper body strength is significantly greater, and that they should not take Wonder Woman as, gospel.
As the truth, yeah. It's and also I just like how Miriam basically says, we've just got to re-acknowledge that men and women are different. And I've got a funny little video when we were on holiday like last year, and the 4 boys were in a room and just beating each other up, and I just panned across and my daughter was like playing with a little baby, like it was just like, that's it. It's
threading her needlecraft.
Mail next, and I thought teachers were meant to help kids. Sounds like this one actually did a good job. Simon.
Yes, this is an all-too-familiar story again. A Christian teacher who was fired for refusing to call an 8-year-old girl by male pronouns. And the teacher, who cannot be named, let alone dead named, is
a little in-joke there for the regular viewers.
Another one of my little Hove Park dog whistles. Dead name. I think there's a lot of truth to the idea that oh God, we've covered it so much. Stonewall, LGBTQ, encouraging children from an absurdly early age to question whether or not they can have a gender identity that aligns with their sexual biological reality, and whether that can be privileged above it, in fact, and their sense of themselves as not being what the anatomy suggests has to be acknowledged by teachers, by staff, by dinner ladies, by people who may have not been brought up to, understand the world that way.
Well, this is what this teacher refers to, the literature that staff were provided by Stonewall, and it will basically being propaganda, Cresta.
Yeah, I tend to agree. So temporarily the child wasn't moved. The teacher was given, they were given a different class, which I bet was really oversubscribed. I bet lots of parents will get my kid in that class. Apparently she even tried to use a gender-neutral name.
Yeah, which seems fair enough.
We don't know how rude it was, though.
Now, what I would say is that if there's an 8-year-old girl who thinks they're a boy, what I would do is look at the parents, frankly. Because...
Well, the parents were on board with this. So
well, that's what I'm saying. That's only going to come from the parents, an 8-year-old, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, it comes later on. It's been proven that it comes through social media. It's a social contagion. I've seen it with my own eyes, with family, friends, and the impact that can have. But when it's an 8-year-old who's saying that a girl saying it's a boy, that something feels very rotten behind
unless they're like very theatrical. Usually theatre slang,
Yeah, no, if your parents are a film star, then, that's exactly proves my point there. Cresta, why are Spanish people trying to make our children infertile in the Mail?
Revealed how doctors in Spain are exploiting a loophole to send prescriptions for powerful sex-change drugs to British teenagers. This is a bit dark. So we're currently not allowing this to happen in the UK. UK doctors can't prescribe these drugs, but there is a website. We don't exactly know where it is. This says Spain, But
the website is Gender GP, which is a private clinic.
Yeah,
exactly. That basically forwards people onto this.
And I had a look earlier, and it's exactly what you'd expect. It's a lovely website, and it looks very kind of medical, and it's full of, I assume, real parents and kids saying that they've used their services and how wonderful they are.
Although that would be incredibly easy to fake nowadays.
Well, of course. So who knows if it's real, but clearly the prescriptions are real, and these are now being sent directly to UK pharmacies.
Yeah.
So children, people under 18, can order these drugs for themselves and then go along and pick them up.
Yeah.
So potentially Wes Streeting's going to get into trouble over this. Kira Bell, detransitioner, I think she's been on the channel.
She certainly has, yeah. And they call her anti-trans activist. She's not an anti-trans activist. She's not anti-trans. I can't stand that kind of language. You'd think Daily Mail, which has actually been quite good on this stuff, would know better.
Right.
Have they, though?
Well, they've been mixed.
They've covered these. They're covering this story.
None of the press these days are dry and reliable, frankly.
No, just headliners. We're the only ones.
Yeah. I find that, I mean, it's a great story. I love it. I am the correct Dr. Lopez. We told him we were there, call from the British government. He said, he snapped, I am out of here. He then climbed on his £1,500 sports bike and raced into the rush hour traffic. Lovely scene. I will just say there are a lot of websites now where you can order various medications and things that should also
I used to get hair medication for legally.
Yeah, well, there's all kinds of stuff overseas, and you don't have to go on the Silk Road for it anymore. It's quite easy, and they arrive in a brown paper package.
What are you getting, Simon? Little blue pills. Blue pills. Right, last section to go with plenty more laughs and fascinating stories. Why don't people no longer trust the National Trust, and how many parents want to go back to being ravers? Find out in 2 minutes. This is Headliners, only on GB News.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
It's an unsettled story across some parts of Western Europe as we go through the next couple of days. There's the risk of some heavy, thundery rain bringing some flooding. There's a system pushing into Portugal, western Spain, and that's bringing some intense rain. Also, some heavy rain already affecting eastern parts of Spain, so further totals building up, causing more issues. More unsettled weather across parts of the Mediterranean, though further east towards Greece it's looking largely dry. Then quite a mixed bag when we head through the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head into tomorrow, I'm afraid to say there is going to be less sunshine around, more cloudy skies, also some showers at times, but still remaining rather warm for the time of year. And it's all because we have low pressure moving in from the Atlantic, dragging in some frontal systems, so some more cloud and some outbreaks of rain. And we'll see that change as we head through into this evening. So much of northern England, parts of Wales and the southwest will see quite a lot of low cloud, so some murky conditions at times, some outbreaks of rain, but still staying relatively clear across parts of the southeast and then later on across parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. So turning a little bit chillier here with some patchy frost, but most towns and cities seeing a milder night if you compare it to recent nights. Then across Scotland, first thing, there's going to be a few clearer skies, still feeling chilly, largely dry, though we can't rule out a few showers just skirting the far north. And similar across Northern Ireland, brighter, perhaps with a bit more cloud across eastern areas. But for northern parts of England, parts of Wales and also the southwest, a lot of low clouds, so a murky start and quite damp at times with some outbreaks of rain. But East Anglia, Sussex and Kent likely to see a bright but chilly start to the day. Now we are going to see those cloudy skies continuing across much of the country. Still some outbreaks of rain at times. The best of the brightness still across parts of the southeast and then later on across parts of Scotland. So that's where we should see some sunshine. But for many, it is going to be a much cloudier day, but still feeling warm. Temperatures still widely above average, so highs of 15, possibly even 16 Celsius across the southeast. Then through onto Saturday, there'll be some cloud and some wet weather to start across Scotland, parts of the southwest. But through the course of the day, we'll see high pressure building back in. So once again, lots of dry weather around and lots of sunshine too. And temperatures still above average for the time of year, so still feeling pleasant. As we head into next week, more dry weather, more sunshine, but we'll see temperatures dip away. So some cold days and some cold nights ahead.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back to Headliners. Simon, The Telegraph has Disney concerned that its new film will send people to sleep.
Oh, you're thinking of Sleeping Beauty, are you?
Oh gosh, that's how long it is. Yes, you're right, I have. Does Snow White not go in?
Snow White,
she cheats an apple.
Yeah, medically induced.
Oh, my gosh, I thought I didn't know.
Brutally induced coma. No, this has been an ongoing saga for, I think, about 48 years, hasn't it? The Snow White remake, the live-action show that is plagued with all kinds of self-inflicted wounds. The casting of Rachel Ziegler seems to have been the root of most of the evil, universally disliked. Traditionalist fans don't like the fact that she is, as the Telegraph refers to her, Latina rather than Latinx. And of course, they say the reporter says this jars with those who remember a previous traditional version in which she was Caucasian. Well, it's a German fairy story. That's the point. It's not just a random story from around the world. It was a German fairy story. It was collected by the Brothers Grimm, and it had a certain aesthetic and a certain tradition that went with it. I
don't think that doesn't mean it can't translate, but I think, of course, there are going to be people who complain about it, but I'd say a lot of people seem more concerned with this actress's pronouncement.
She's been extraordinarily provocative.
Being from wherever she's from is so far down the list.
It started with that, I think.
Oh, my goodness. Do you remember that clip of her saying, weird, and she was criticising the 1930s one and implying that it was all sexual assault and I'm going to clean up Snow White? Well, people don't like that. It's too much. And I feel slightly sorry for them because this comes after they'd had a bunch of hits with other remakes.
Lion King.
Yes, all that stuff.
Live-action remakes.
Alice in Wonderland was beautiful, wasn't it? It was fascinating. And they thought, I've got another one. No, you haven't.
This is going to be their big one for their 100th anniversary.
And also, of course, she's had a rift with Gal Gadot, which I had always pronounced it with a silent T, as in Harlow, but she is apparently it's a hard T at the end.
Really?
Did you know that?
No, I didn't. I mean, that's a ridiculous bit of casting there because Gal Gadot is one of the most beautiful women in the world. The idea that she's jealous is somewhat ridiculous.
Anyway, they overcame the dwarf issue by using CGI instead.
Yes. So, I think that's annoyed people as well.
That annoyed people.
They haven't got a single thing right about it. I'm almost tempted to go and see it to see if it's so bad it's good, but no.
Well, fine, fair enough. OK, Cressida, we have a story in Friday's Guardian about how... I can't be bothered to read the rest of this, actually.
Brilliant. New poll finds 40% of Britons have not read a book in the past year. This really upset Simon. We were in the same room when we were reading it. He was just shocked. The median British adult has read or listened to 3 books in the past 12 months. If you've read more than 3, you're beating the average. So this is a poll by YouGov. And people aren't reading very much. There's a political split as well. This is in The Guardian. And they want you to know that Reform voters have read less than Labour voters. And
They've read both books.
Women read more than men. It's kind of what you'd expect, really. It's just that overall, people aren't reading very much at all.
Well, there's 4% here who read over 50 books a year, and I'm assuming that's you, Simon, is it?
I think probably between reading and listening, I do listen to a lot, and actually it includes those numbers. Audible, which is the big platform for listening to books, but I dare say there are others, has absolutely saved my life in terms of consuming long-form prose these days. I find I can consume vastly more, and so that's kept my numbers up. But to not have read a single book, I think, is probably a sign that you are not activating a part of your brain that needs a little bit of exercise, you know?
Yeah, no. I mean, I've got mates of mine who just don't have a book in their house.
I've got a book group, and not only do we read books, but they're really cracking people as well. It's very good social...
Very good.
Funny enough, I did a podcast with Nick Dixon and Paul Cox of this channel recently in which we discussed the mental health benefits of book club because it's good for men who can discuss emotional issues from an oblique angle.
Give it a go. I just have to learn to read. Simon, The Telegraph has the National Trust losing it.
Yes, National Trust is losing members. They've put their prices up, although not by a terrible amount. It's 6%, bit over inflation, but not disgraceful. But they are losing members, and it seems an awful lot of people are still infuriated by their woke agenda. There is somebody called Zuditu Gebriohanes, who is a senior researcher at Prosperity Institute, and I must admit I had not heard of her and might have had prejudicially not expected her to be the flag bearer for the Restore Trust organisation, but she is trying to get the National Trust agenda back on course. People want to go and see nice old houses, walk around gardens and not be confronted with the legacy of slavery every time they inspect an artwork.
Well, I think there's nothing wrong with a bit of context, because when they have no context, that's a bit frustrating as well, because you want to know what went on. But it says here they were complaining about the lack of context and everything. It didn't care to explain its history to its visitors, and then suddenly, after Black Lives Matter, it became interested. And
yeah, but only one aspect of history, and sort of in a tenuous way, some of the links. But someone who walked past here once had something to do with slavery. And that's the history of this house, then. Fine, right, let's take a look at Friday's front pages. Times, Trump is encouraged by Zelensky. Peace. Guardian, a watershed moment. EU leaders agree huge defence spending rise. The Telegraph, pension fund giants boycott UK arms firms. The Mirror, betrayed again. Metro, 1 in 4 knows a female victim of violence. And The Star, footy crisis, five-a-side pitches ripped up for la-di-da paddle courts. That's all we have time for. Thank you very much to my guests, Cresta and Simon. Leo Kearse will be back tomorrow at 11 p.m. with Steve N. Allen and the aforementioned Nick Dixon. And if you're watching at 5 a.m, stay tuned for breakfast and have a great day. Bye.
We'll see a cold snap, which will quickly develop into a warm front. Boxed Boiler Repairs, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head into tomorrow, I'm afraid to say there is going to be less sunshine around, more cloudy skies, also some showers at times, but still remaining rather warm for the time of year. And it's all because we have low pressure moving in from the Atlantic, dragging in some frontal systems, so some more cloud and some outbreaks of rain. And we'll see that change as we head through into this evening. So much of northern England, parts of Wales and the southwest will see quite a lot of low cloud, so some murky conditions at times, some outbreaks of rain, but still staying relatively clear across parts of the southeast and then later on across parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. So turning a little bit chillier here with some patchy frost, but most towns and cities seeing a milder night if you compare it to recent nights. Then across Scotland, first thing, there's going to be a few clearer skies, still feeling chilly, largely dry, though we can't rule out a few showers just skirting the far north. And similar across Northern Ireland, brighter, perhaps with a bit more cloud across eastern areas. But for northern parts of England, parts of Wales and also the southwest, a lot of low clouds, so a murky start and quite damp at times with some outbreaks of rain. But East Anglia, Sussex and Kent likely to see a bright but chilly start to the day. Now we are going to see those cloudy skies continuing across much of the country. Still some outbreaks of rain at times. The best of the brightness still across parts of the southeast and then later on across parts of Scotland. So that's where we should see some sunshine. But for many, it is going to be a much cloudier day, but still feeling warm. Temperatures still widely above average, so highs of 15, possibly even 16 Celsius across the southeast. Then through on to Saturday, there'll be some cloud and some wet weather to start across Scotland, parts of the southwest. But through the course of the day, we'll see high pressure building back in. So once again, lots of dry weather around and lots of sunshine too. And temperatures still above average for the time of year, so still feeling pleasant. As we head into next week, more dry weather, more sunshine, but we'll see temperatures dip away. So some cold days and some cold nights ahead.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you could be one of 2 big winners in our latest giveaway, as we have 2 prize bundles that have to be won. There's 2 lots of a totally tax-free £10,000 in cash. You'll also receive a brand new iPhone 16, along with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. Hurry, lines close on the 7th of March. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either. This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good evening. As ever, it's Donald Trump-related stories that are dominating the news. Tonight we'll discuss Volodymyr Zelensky's leadership, maybe one or two question marks around the great war hero. We'll talk about Trump's latest pronouncement on what will happen to Hamas if they don't surrender the hostages, both alive and dead. The two-tier justice row from yesterday is raging, with, for once, it seems actually quite a lot of common ground between the Conservatives and the Labour Party. And, as you know, 5.5 million of you have had your votes cancelled on the 1st of May. We'll discuss whether that makes any sense at all and whether these new super councils will actually save the taxpayer money. But before all of that, let's get the news with Katie Bowen.
Nigel, thank you and good evening. It's 7:01. These are your latest headlines from the GB Newsroom. GB News understands this evening that 20 countries are in talks about joining a coalition of the willing to keep the peace in Ukraine. It was announced earlier today that the UK government has signed a £30 million deal to provide Ukraine's armed forces with more advanced attack drones to tackle Russian aggression in the Black Sea. Sir Keir Starmer said the UK will play a leading part in terms of defence and security. Posting on X after that EU leaders summit in Brussels, President Zelensky said that, quote, everyone must ensure that Russia, the sole source of this war, accepts the need to end it. He went on to add that the next step is basic trust in the circumstances in which the negotiations are taking place. The Prime Minister spoke to GB News' Catherine Forster a short time ago.
We've enjoyed 80 years of peace. And we've enjoyed 80 years of peace because we've had such a close relationship with the United States. We are closer than any other country to the United States when it comes to our defence, our security, our intelligence sharing. And we've worked with our European partners within NATO, which is the most important alliance the world has ever seen. And we've never made that choice between siding, as it were, with the US or with Europe. Historically, we've never done that. Churchill didn't do it, Attlee didn't do it, and it's certainly not the right thing to do now when things are extremely volatile.
Well, that comes as Defence Secretary John Healey has met with his US counterpart Pete Hegseth a short time ago. Earlier on, the White House said that they had made no decision at this time on the legal status for Ukrainians in the US. The Trump administration confirmed that they had stopped intelligence sharing with Ukraine last night. Triple killer Kyle Clifford has been found guilty at Cambridge Crown Court of raping his ex-partner Louise Hunt in an attack which saw him murder her and her sister with a crossbow and their mother with a butcher's knife. The 26-year-old was found guilty by a jury at Cambridge Crown Court after around 45 minutes. Clifford had previously denied rape. He previously admitted murdering Louise, Hannah and Carol Hunt at their home in Bushey in July last year.